Jeff Paterson, our man at the rink, who made it home. I'm happy to see. That backdrop is so good, Jeff. That backdrop is great. None of us are matching today. I think it's a great day here on Canucks Conversation. How was practice today, Jeff?
Yeah, we're off to a great start. You're right, and looking good. Underwhelming, to be perfectly honest with you. Like I went to the rink this morning. I know I had texted you, and I was like, I think there might be some serious changes. There's going to be some storylines, and we get there, and DeBrusk's out there with Besser and Miller, and uh, Petey and Garland together. Now that was one of the switches that Archie Baines got the promotion, and Nils Höglander got bumped down, and they're not touching that third line right now. But really, the other change, I guess, is Noah Juleson looks like he's going to get an opportunity to draw back in. Forbert and Desharnais were the extras. So you're looking at Brandstrom and Juleson. But the way Rick Tocchet just played some of those clips, like he was exasperated at the podium last night. And it felt like in that moment that, yeah, he was going to go home, might be a sleepless night and, try and reinvent this entire team. All of that said, they have one regulation loss in the 8 games that they've played. And I think he recognizes that this isn't panic time by any stretch, but I was a little surprised. I thought we might see a few different looks. And I guess the real surprise for me was when you heard him basically pound the podium last night and say there's going to be changes on the power play and then trot out the same 5 guys on power play 1. And they didn't do a lot of power play time. At the end of practice, JT left a little early. I don't think there was anything to that. But yeah, I mean, the same 5 with Garland as part of that group now, and Jake DeBrusk remains on the second unit. And look, you saw what a really good penalty killing team in Carolina was able to do to the Canucks. 3 minor penalties, so 3 power plays, 3 shots on goal, and Daniel Sprong had 2 of them. Like, start to do the math there. The first unit, I don't know about you guys, but we've seen other times where they've struggled to gain the zone. The entries have been a problem. Some of the passing hasn't been great. Last night really felt to me like that first unit power play was just offloading problems. Like hot potato, puck would come and guy wouldn't handle it cleanly, and then he'd just get rid of it. And like, I don't want it. You take it. And again, Carolina pressures so much. Connor Garland talked about that. He said they knew it, and Garland was disappointed in the way that this team failed to meet pressure with pressure, in the words of a head coach in these parts. So, power play has scored twice in a couple of games against Calgary and against Chicago. That bumps the overall raw percentage up. But those are the Flames and those are the Blackhawks. And when you see them against a really good penalty killing team, looked completely inept last night.
Are there any changes you'd like to see them experiment with, as far as maybe a new player on that top unit, or even if it's going to be the same 5 personnel, a different look as far as the setup that they have with the 1-3-1, or even philosophically, like what tweaks would you maybe like to see for that top unit?
Right, and I think that's part of the challenge for the coaching staff is these are the players you've got. They were all stars last year. These are incredible players at the National Hockey League level. I thought it was interesting commentary from the coach today. He was asked a lot about the power play and the fact that there weren't changes, and basically said, like, Yogi Sveikovsky, the assistant coach who's overseeing the power play, he's like, he made a great presentation again this morning. It's not the systems, it's not the coaching. Like, he really went to bat for the sort of the systems that they're employing, and then said sometimes you get these skilled guys and they think they can skill the puck into the net, and that's just not the case. The penalty killing unit is working hard and outworking your power play. So again, a few pointed comments from the coach. I asked about the lack of one-timers from Elias Pettersson just because I'm sort of fascinated by it, and he came right back to this idea that PD just stands still. And he says it's too easy to defend. And that's why he said it's not that they're saying don't pass to Elias Pettersson, keep it away from him. But he said, like, Petey's got to move and then get back into a position where that one-timer becomes an option. And so, hard to disagree with that. But how many times have we heard Rick Tocchet when he hasn't really wanted to, carve Elias Pettersson, but comes back to this, he's got to move his feet. Like, that's the criticism that the coach elects to go with. So to your question, Harm, if I had the answers, I would sell them to Rick Tocchet for like $1 billion, and then I would probably retire to a beach somewhere. But I'm not sure that anybody's got the answers other than these guys have to figure it out. These are elite level players, and it's so frustrating to watch when they can't move the puck. And we've seen it. We've all seen, like, when that power play is on and is so dynamic and they make it look easy. Unfortunately, far too often this season in the 25 power plays that they've had, they're 5 for 25. So again, 20% is not a terrible percentage. You'd like it to be a few percentage points higher, but it's the fact that 4 of the 5 goals have come in 2 games. And the other games, there really hasn't been a whole lot there. So, I'm not here for wholesale changes or completely reinventing the power play. I just put it at the feet of this group. I do think sometimes JT and Quinn get the blinders on a little too much over on that left-hand side, but today at practice, JT was set up on the right side, Connor Garland manning that left side, and then you had Petey and Besser at the net front. So, if that's what they go into action against New Jersey with tomorrow's a new day, and we'll see what the power play looks like.
Jeff, the penalty kill held up its end of the bargain to some extent. One guy who really held up his end of the bargain, Kevin Lankinen. We were just talking about him to kind of kick off the show here, and my take is that they need to stick with him. I know you got to get Archer Shelovs in eventually. I would get him in on Saturday against San Jose. Right now, you need points, and Kevin Lankinen is getting you points. You also don't know how long a goalie's going to stay on a hot streak, is kind of my opinion. And I think Kevin Lankinen's good. I've talked about him a lot, but like I would be going right back to Kevin Lankinen Wednesday in New Jersey, excuse me.
Yeah, I thought there was a possibility. The fact that Lankinen had given up 3 goals in each of the games against Chicago and Pittsburgh, the door was open to a switch. I wasn't banging the drum, but Lankinen delivered victory, so I don't blame Rick Tocchet for coming back with him, and he was terrific. Ultimately, they lose in overtime. Nothing he can do on the overtime winner, but I'm with you. Against a dynamic team like New Jersey that's starting a road trip out here, when Jersey is clicking, you think back, like they scored 6 on the Canucks here in Vancouver last year in early December. Canucks turn the tables. Both the games were wide open with a bunch of goals in the season series. Yeah, I think that's how New Jersey has liked to play in recent years. And so that probably is a tough assignment for Archer Shelovs. Again, if the Devils are sharp at the top of their game, when you've got San Jose sitting there on Saturday as what would seem like a much easier landing spot, they do have to get Shelovs in there. And I would think that Shelovs is going to get one of San Jose or Anaheim to start the road trip. But yeah, I would come back with Kevin Lankinen. He was terrific. I mean, the number of pucks that got to the goal line last night and the toe of the skate blade. There were a couple of those instances where it looked like sure goals and he was able to make the stops. And he's been a revelation. He has been the Canucks' best player through 8 games. I don't think there's much doubt of that. Quinn Hughes is in that conversation, although what a weird night for Quinn last night, doing all the offensive things with a goal and an assist and 26 minutes of ice time, but on the ice for the final 3 goals that the Carolina Hurricanes scored. And not pinning them all on him, but you were talking about the one where he got trapped up ice and JT didn't cover. There was the pass that went through him on the Natchez goal. And then on overtime, like, how do you have the Norris Trophy winner, a 100-point guy, and a 40-goal man? They don't touch the puck in overtime. Like, that's crazy. And then the defensive breakdown, and Tocchet called it puck watching today. So, long way of saying I'd probably stick with Lankinen for one more start. But, that's always the battle, right? Is trying to figure out when even a goalie that's on a heater, when is that play going to drop off? And inevitably it does for everybody. And you try to get ahead of that. So I think with the way the games have been spaced out here and at home and no travel and day off on Sunday, Lankinen probably got one more really good game in him, but it's probably getting close to a night off for him. And if Shelovs was to get the game on Saturday, then Lankinen could play Wednesday game and wouldn't play again until presumably next Tuesday in Los Angeles or in Anaheim.
You mentioned the Canucks not touching the puck in OT. I thought it was really interesting, Carolina's strategy at the start of OT, where I remember seeing Jordan Staal and 2 defensemen, Slavin and Burns, and thinking, well, what are they doing here? Like, I don't quite understand the strategy as opposed to just like getting Aho out there, getting another dynamic forward like a Svechnikov out there. And then I figured it out, where I bet if they win this draw, which Jordan Staal is a lead on draws, they're thinking, we'll get him off the ice. We'll get Burns immediately off the ice because we're controlling the puck. And then if you lose the draw, you've got your best shutdown center on the ice and you've got 2 defensemen. So you're well equipped to handle Vancouver's offensive star. So I thought that was a pretty clever strategy by Rod Brindamore to shift things to the top 6 tweak that we saw in practice. No secret that Höglander didn't have a great performance last night, but my initial thought seeing Baines in that spot and instead of Höglander is it feels a bit too quick. Like one game shouldn't be enough for Höglander to immediately drop to the 4th line, especially because I don't have enough confidence that Baines has a consistent level of top 6 offense to really deliver in that spot next to Pettersson, especially Paterson sort of still trying to find his top form. But I'm curious what you make of that change.
Yeah, look, Archdeep scoring the other night was terrific, and it looked like he had scored in back-to-back games. And unfortunately for him, it was offside. I mean, when they reviewed that one, but I liked where he was slotted as a fourth line guy because we've said it earlier. The look that he had last year and even the first few games this year, he's not a top six guy in the NHL at this stage. He's still developing and maybe he gets there, but I'm with you, Harm, right here, right now. This team is trying to figure things out. It always feels like the default scapegoat is just to bump Höglander. And look, Dakota Joshua is knocking on the door. Another practice today. Rick Tocchet said he went to the doctor yesterday. These are all steps towards getting him back. Tocchet was asked about a possible conditioning stint in the American Hockey League for Dakota Joshua. Said he hadn't talked to the player about that, but it had been discussed internally. And then in the same breath, he said he was probably leaning to just getting him in the NHL lineup and sort of managing his minutes and trying to ramp him up from there. So we'll see where it goes. Not going to play tomorrow against New Jersey, but I do think by the end of the week, Dakota Joshua becomes an option. And then there's the roster decision that they have to make to activate him, and then obviously the lineup as well. So some moving parts there. And, you know, if it's one game for Archie Baines with Elias Pettersson and Garland, I suppose the one knock on Höglander, and look, he's had a nice start to the season. Doesn't have a ton of points, but he's been doing Nils Höglander things. His ice time has been up. On the, I think it was the Natchez goal. Look, it starts with an offensive zone face-off and went from offensive zone face-off and potentially a scoring opportunity for the Canucks to a 2-on-1 the other way in a hurry. Now, Desharnais with a bad pinch and nobody covered there. But if you watch the replay, and I would encourage people to go watch, Nils Höglander on the back check, his last stride is at center ice, and he just coasts. Now, Natchez scores, so it doesn't really matter. But if he doesn't, it's play on, and you have to play to the whistle, and that's the kind of stuff that the coaches see, certainly. And so why Nils Höglander decided to stop skating on a play like that one, it's the NHL. Like, you can't take shifts off. This is a coach that always talks about the importance of line changes and those types of things. So that was sort of the glaring part for me on the night. Now, he had company. That line just didn't have it, and it happens sometimes. And the utilization, I know we talked about it on Rink Wide, but to see Elias Pettersson with 11 minutes of even strength ice time over the course of a night, 3 minutes in the first period, one of the low guys, that's how you ultimately know what a coach is thinking about a player and a line's performance, is how he deploys them. And those guys they didn't have it really from the outset last night. So yeah, you'd like to chalk it up to an off night. Unfortunately, it's part of a broader conversation when it comes to Elias Pettersson. But for Nils Höglander, it looks like, yes, he's getting bumped down for this game against the Devils. And then if Dakota Joshua gets back in there, who's coming out? I hope it's not Nils Höglander. I don't think he deserves to come right out of the lineup, but somebody is going to have to sit here if they're going to plug Dakota Joshua back in for the first time this season.
Okay, question for the group, more of a talking point for the group. Harm, you feel free to chime in too. We need to start talking about Carson Soucy. Like, I thought it was another really tough night for him. I saw the tweet this morning that said he has the worst expected goals for percentage and worst Corsi percentage of all NHL defensemen who've played at least 100 minutes this season. It's getting worse for Soucy, and we talked about his slow start to the season. It's getting worse. Like, last night was worse.
And it's so strange because when he is at his best, and we saw it for long stretches, he was hurt twice last year, but he's just a low maintenance, go about your business, safe guy that the coaches trust. Now, we know in the playoffs, like the matchup, they got crushed, but they did a great job with their size, Myers and Soucy, of keeping the Oilers to the perimeter. That was the way that they wanted to play. It's the loud mistakes. It kind of feels like this is Tyler Myers of a couple of years ago, that things are winding up in the back of the net, and just things that I don't know, I'm not used to seeing from Carson Soucy in his time with the Canucks. Now, he was on the ice on the first goal, the Carrier one-timer, and probably gives Carrier a little bit too much space. But boy, if you roll that clip back, Vincent Desharnais, puck on his stick, no duress, and just fires it out to center. And this is the issue with Desharnais that they're going to have to live with, I suppose. But unfortunately, there's going to be occasions where those sort of miscues come right back at you, and against a team like Carolina, wound up in the back of the net. So could Soucy have closed a little faster maybe on Carrier? It was a great shot. You don't expect, I don't think of Carrier as a one-time threat necessarily, but man, he got everything on that one. But yeah, and Harm, jump in by all means here, but to me, it's just sort of these uncharacteristic mistakes that we have seen from Carson Soucy almost every game. And I know it's only 8, but it's also 8. Like it's starting to add up here that there's just been way more mistakes than I would have anticipated to this point from a guy like Carson Soucy.
Well, another thing that stood out is just watching Carolina's blue line. And again, this is a group that's adjusting to losing their entire second pair of Shea and Pesce, and they've been able to kind of move on from that without skipping a beat. Is the construction of their blue line is outside of Brent Burns, everybody can skate, right? You look at how they tried to plug in the holes on the back end. They go out and acquire Gostisbehere and Walker to essentially be their third pair. And Orlov and Chatfield are kind of their de facto second pair now. All of those guys can skate. All of those guys can move the puck. And when I look at even Soucy and Myers as a pair, it's not that they're slow in open ice, because we see it, especially for big guys. They move pretty well. They're not like Vincent Desharnais, where it's like they're going to get turnstiled. But the issue that I see is on defensive zone retrievals in tight spaces. They don't have the agility and the edge work to separate from forecheckers. And I think that's been the biggest sort of glaring issue for that pair is puck is dumped into the corner, and every time it goes in on Soucy or Myers, I'm immediately thinking this puck isn't going to get out of the zone, because they just don't have that little bit of shiftiness, despite, again, them being fine as skaters in open ice, just in those corners, in those tight spaces. Like you watch Gostisbehere, you watch Walker, you watch Orlov, those guys can move and they shake off forecheckers, and they just can't give themselves the separation. I'm not even talking about wheeling around the net, Eric Brandstrom or Quinn Hughes style, to make great plays. I'm talking just that little window of space so that you have an extra second with full possession to get your head up and make a clean play. It's just all they have time to do when they get the puck is just try and rim it around the wall or go glassing out, and it's just not working right now.
Right. And Derek Forbort is more of the same in that regard. Now, he's not likely to get into the lineup, but he will play again for the Vancouver Canucks here. And so it is a glaring weakness. There's no question. That's why it's been a topic really from training camp and through these first 8 games, that this team can't get ultimately where it wants to go without a significant upgrade on the back end. Now, we saw last November it was Zadorov. Are they going to go right down that sort of road again? Do they have the assets to make those sorts of moves? We'll see how patient this management group will be. Patrick Allvin sitting in the stands at practice today, seeing for himself. So I'm sure they recognize a lot of those. I hope they do. Things that you just talked about there. But you're right. With the personnel that they've got, I don't see how it gets appreciably better in a lot of those areas unless they go out and alter this lineup.
Jeff, did we get a Thatcher Demko update at practice today?
Yeah, Rick Tocchet was asked about Demko and said 4 really good days, but I'm at a point where I don't know ultimately what that means. I mean, I'm glad to hear it, but as opposed to what qualifies as a good day these days, I still haven't seen Thatcher Demko in equipment on the ice since training camp. Like, it's November here at the end of the week. I saw the video of him in Chicago, tethered to that bungee cord. It looked like baby steps. But other than that, like, he's around the team. I've seen him in hallways and stuff. I saw, a couple of the games. I've seen him in Tyler Myers' night the other night. He was there for the ceremony. So he's around this team. But in terms of us getting our own eyes on him, anybody that's at the rink, they're certainly keeping him away. And any workouts, I think, are being done early, before the media is allowed into Rogers Arena. So Tocchet said 4 good days. But it's such a nebulous sort of, concept of where he is in all of this, and ultimately what constitutes good days. Your guess is as good as mine. I still feel like he's going to be a ways away here. And again, that just underscores the importance of having Kevin Lankinen and the work that he has done for this hockey club. So yes, the update is 4 good days, Dave. Take that for what it's worth.
We'll take it. That's all we can do. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it, and we will chat with you soon.
Well, including this one, I hope you guys have 4 good days of Canucks conversation for the remainder of this week. I'm sure. I have no doubt you will.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. That's great. There he is, Jeff Paterson, the host of Rink Wide Vancouver. You can catch all of those shows just moments after the final horn. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.